In this problem, they describe a rectangle and they ask us to find the length. Okay, so we know a rectangle has width and length, and it doesn't really matter which is which, just pick one. For this problem, they tell us that the length is 24 meters less than 8 times the width. Okay, so that's what we did, right? 24 less means we're subtracting from 8 times the width. They also tell us that the area of this rectangle is 320 square meters. And we know that the area of a rectangle is equal to its length times its width. And so that allows us to set up an equation. If we do the length times the width, so W times 8W minus 24, we know that's going to equal 320. All right, now I can get rid of those parentheses by distributing, and I'm also going to move that 320 so everything's on the same side. So that gives us 8W squared minus 24W minus 320, and that equals 0. Okay, now notice all of these numbers are multiples of 8. And so I'm going to divide everything, technically including the 0. I'm going to divide it all by 8. And so that leaves me W squared minus 3W minus 40 equals 0. Okay, now if this is factorable, then that'll be the easiest way to solve. In order to factor it, I need two numbers that are going to multiply up to negative 40, but when I add those two numbers, I want to get negative 3. All right, and so I'm just going to make a list. Since I know I want them to add up to a negative, I know that I'm going to need a positive, and the bigger number will need to be negative, right? So I know 1 times 40, but if I add those, I get negative 39. After 1, I can do 2 with negative 20. That gives me negative 18. 3 does not go into 40, but 4 times negative 10 would give me negative 40. If I add those, I'm getting closer to negative 3, but still too much. 5 times negative 8 equals negative 40. And if I add those together, I get negative 3. So these are the two numbers that I'm going to use. Those are my two factors. And so this will factor out into W plus 5 times W minus 8. And if you're not sure what I'm doing with all of this, I highly suggest that you do get some help with factoring quadratics, okay? But it still equals 0. And then we have what's called the zero product property. And again, that's something that if you need more help with, you can look up a little more thoroughly. But basically it says that we're multiplying W plus 5 with W minus 8 and we get 0. That means either W plus 5 has to equal 0 or W minus 8 has to equal 0. And so either one of those are possibilities that we need to examine. Well, if it was W plus 5 equals 0, that would mean that W equals negative 5. And if this was just a regular problem we were solving, okay, that would be fine. But W is the width of our rectangle. It's not possible for that to be negative. So we are going to reject this answer. We look at our other option. W minus 8 equals 0 means that W would be positive 8, and that is perfectly possible. So where width is 8, but they asked for length, okay? So we're going to go back and we're going to plug that in here, okay? The length equals 8 times the width, which we just solved for 8, and then we subtract 24. Well, since 8 times 8 is 64, subtract 24, that tells us the length must be 40 meters. And there you have it.